Hi y'all. Okay, so this is just a little painting that I did just so that we can practice moving the paint around the paper. This paper here is 100% cotton. It's this Birch's, and it's bigger than yours. It's much bigger, but yours is a great size for getting some practice moving the water and the color around the canvas. You'll all get to see this. I'll bring it in next week. Painted this while it was on the block. I took it off mostly because I'm holding the camera and I couldn't do that at the same time, but you can see the paper underneath is fine. It looked a little warped while I was painting it, but it dries nice and smooth because it is stretched. The only place where there is any kind of a bend at all on the paper is actually where on the back is a little spot for us to slide our knife in and detach it. So that said, you can practice this week. You can see on mine here, there's things I like about it. There's things that I don't like about it. It's not done because some of it I'm going to demonstrate in class. I do like my rocks though. I think that they're pretty cool, and a couple of my trees. There's some things in the sky where I had trouble keeping the paper wet enough that so I got some of these little cloud-like dry spots that I would have preferred it to stay more like this, but that's okay. And the tree's not done. Some of the rocks aren't done. Like I said, I didn't finish this because I was going to demonstrate some in class. But you can see I have my little central focal point of my really bright white or my lighter color back in the back. And that's really what I was aiming for in this one. I didn't use any masking. We're going to have plenty of time to cover masking and get used to masking. But if you're practicing this and one of your homework things this week was to, after doing it in class, was to go and practice it. So you can practice. We have plenty of paper, and so feel free to practice one of these. It'd be great. Leave yourself a little area where you consciously think about keeping it light. No masking, just water. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to demonstrate it here. It's going to be different, and I'm not going to go into a full tutorial. I'm just going to try and crank out a little bit here before my crew gets home from work and it starts getting noisy in my house. But what I did was I took this big flat brush, and I just really, this paper isn't taped down, by the way. Like I said, I'm doing this quick. But I want to get the paper wet, and I'm not soaking it. It's not stretched. You aren't going to need to do any of that. You're just going to do just like I am. You're going to paint on some water and get it nice and wet. Now, I did this on this one, but as I was painting this, I realized that I really had a spot that was a little bit dry. So it's not a bad idea to leave it soaking in for a minute, and then you can go back and you can see there's actually a couple of dry spots right in here that if I add some more water to. Because one of the things about learning to do watercolor is you are going to have to figure out how much water, how wet does the paper need to be, how much color. There's so much to do with just learning the way the water moves, and that's why tonight we're just going to focus on that. And we're going to focus on the Northern Lights. I only have the two colors out. We'll get the green because yellow and blue make green. I'm going to leave that light area. I'm probably not going to come back and do the rocks. I don't have the colors out for that, so I'm just going to have you guys mess around with. When I did the rocks, I added a little bit of purple. You can see that, and then I used a little bit of burnt sienna for the a little bit of brown in the rocks and the tree, and then I did use a little bit of black in the trees as I was just experimenting on my atmospheric perspective of trees and stuff over there. We'll talk about that another time. So keep in mind, you're not going to like everything necessarily about all your paintings, no matter how many tutorials you watch of professionals or non-professionals, is that you're still going to have that learning curve. And so that's the whole idea behind this, is just to be able to enjoy the process and see what you can learn from it. We'll talk about that. I thought it was funny that even this little spot that I didn't really like, and how that dry spot and stuff, a lot of times that's what watercolor is known for, is making some really cool movements and patterns and stuff. But here is a photo of a professional artist, a watercolor artist, painting. I love his trees, and we'll talk about trees and the shape of trees and stuff, but you can see that his sky has some of that as well. And so, you know, he's got some salt in there, and so some of it's intentional. Mine, I'm just going to enjoy. Okay, so here we go. My paper has got some water, so it's a little damp. I'm just going to give it another little stroke here just to make sure that I have enough fluidity and movement. And then because I'm painting one-handed, we'll see how this goes. All right, I'm actually going to think about the Northern Lights are ribbons, and they have that when they do that streaking thing, they streak up is how they appear. But when I'm just going to come in and I'm going to create a couple of ribbons of yellow, and then, oh, I left my sponge over here. There we go. And then I'm going to come in with some water and create some streaks of blue right along the edges of those. And I'm going to paint around. You can see it's pretty light, and I'll come back with the blue later and darken some of that blue, but right now we just got to get some movement going. We want some fluidity going. You want to cover your sky down to where you're near where your water is going to be, so you have that. If you forget to leave a little light spot, you can do that by just brushing it back. You can take a paper towel or a Kleenex. Grabbing my paper towel here because, of course, I wasn't ready. And you can wipe into it and just remove a little bit. And I like going up into the Northern Lights a little bit. And then you can turn your pad around and get some movement going. I'm going to have to encourage that with my brush. And because I am painting one-handed, I'm going to put it down and I'm going to stroke up. If you have it upside down, you can actually stroke towards the top of your page, but you're pulling down. So it just depends on what you are better at, is whether you want to pull down or push up with the brushes. But we want to avoid the little feathery thing that looks like great trees, because that's really not what we're looking for with the Northern Lights. But you can see the movements really starting to happen. It can be kind of fun. So let me get in here. I'm still using the big brush. Can keep in mind, if you don't have a watercolor brush this big, that a smaller brush will work, and also that a regular brush, like I have, this one is a brush for acrylics. Okay, so let me use that one just so you can see. And I'm just going to pull up. And the smaller ones, you got to kind of think about what you're doing a little bit there. And you can also do this. You can go like this, back and forth a little bit. This still hasn't finished moving. Thank goodness, because it looks really not very good right now. But you can see it's starting to dry in a little bit here, and we want to be careful not to let it dry in too much until we decide we like our composition. So I'm going to brush it a little bit, get some of that streakiness out. That's mostly with water. And again, I'll demonstrate this in class. Okay, so I'm going to let it just run a little bit, let it get some movement. I like what's happening over here. It's still a little bit striped from the brush bristles, so I'll probably hit that with water in a second. And here I'm starting to like this better, but I do need to fix those two yellow rectangular areas. This is kind of looking kind of cool. So I'm going to take my watercolor brush and just pull these. And soften these. If I stroke too much, I'm going to blend it all together, and I want to do that because the Northern Lights do have that real ribbony effect. You can see I still have those rectangles in my yellow. They're just in a different spot now, and that's because you're moving the paint around, and it's that paint. So I'm going to pick up some yellow and try and just give those more of a point and get some more stroked in there. I know the color isn't very good because I have, there we go, because I have the glare going on with my particular camera setup, or lack thereof. All right, so I kind of like how that looks flat. I'm going to turn it upside down so that things continue to feel like they're moving up. And like I said, I'm not going to worry too much about anything other than, did I move paint around the paper? Was I in, what kind of control did you have? Did you feel like you had control? Is there that, because, you know, if you did this a second time, would it feel like you had more control and that you knew a little bit more about what you were doing? So it's just practice. It's just practice. I'm going to take some of the blue and I'm going to come in and I'm going to just create some rocks because of when you put ground in any of these kind of pictures, these sky kind of pictures, it always makes it look more like the sky is further back and that the sky is the sky. So I'm going to show you this little brush here, this little scrubber brush. It's just a regular brush for acrylics. But I really liked it because it did lighten and pull off. Do you see how it's like lifting the paint? And so sometimes we want to apply paint, but sometimes we want to pull paint off. And this brush will be a good one for doing that. And then of course we can also rub it out a little bit. Keep that light in there. I don't want it to be too white, but I don't mind having like that real bright little hazy thing going on. So I'm going to leave that. Let's go back in and stroke this because I'm pretty sure I was off camera when I was doing. So let me pan back here so you can see. I'm just going to get in there and create a few little landscapey looking like hill kind of things. And then I can come down and just go ahead and, I don't have to finish this. I don't have to come down into here. I'm just going to go in and create a little bit of water action going on. You know, I like painting small because you learn your learning curve is better with a smaller painting because you're not having to work so hard to fill a canvas or a piece of paper or something, that you can kind of learn a lot in a fast period of time and then start another one, because then a lot of times halfway through you're like, oh, if I had only done that, and you really want to go ahead and start that, but you're in the middle of it and you're like, well, I don't want to not finish this one, you know. So it's okay to do a bunch of little scrappy practicey type paintings. I'm going to leave a little bit of that in my water. You can see my paper's warping, so I'm getting, my lines are kind of funny ripples. And I'm painting with that little scrubby brush. Let's go ahead and see if we can take some more off again. Can create some, when you take paint off, you've got to wipe your sponge off, I mean your brush off on your sponge, otherwise you're just reapplying what you just took off. So I'm going to come in here and just scrub a little bit. And the beauty of this is that I can always crop my paper and find the sections that I like. And if it's a teeny tiny little section, guess what? It can be a greeting card, right? I kind of like this little rock thing over here. I'm going to go ahead. You can see it's starting to dry. I've got this funky little splatter here from, I don't know, probably dripped while I was trying to work on the base. So I can just kind of come up here and put in a little tree. I'll switch to a smaller brush to make the real tree, but I'm just kind of getting some color in there, and we'll talk about trees. One week we're going to do all different kinds of trees, so you can really learn how to layer your stuff. But yeah, we can just come in here with a little dry brush. Now when the painting dries, I can go back, or when it's more dry, I can go back in there more easily and put those in without worrying about them blurring. So anyway, that is a little bit of what we were going to learn in this week's class. We will cover all of this information. There's still a lot of information that I didn't get out, but have some fun moving paint around and trying to create some sort of sky. I like the blue and yellow because it kept it simple. But practice any of the colors that you want, and then we will come together next week and we will continue learning.